Well, thank you, everybody, and I'd like to thank all the organizers for inviting us to come here today, and especially Nadia Portmoro for all of her hard work in organizing this. Spasibo, Nadia. I'm going to talk today about the Enbridge pipeline and the BC Coastal Spirit River. We did a study last year and presented it to the joint review panel on how a tanker spill on the coast, which in our opinion is imminent if the pipeline is built, will destroy a beautiful island of the White River called Ribble Island. So who are we? We're a small group based in New Denver. We've been around about 30 years. We formed to save the Valhalla range from clear-cut logging, and we've gone on to save over 1 million acres of incredible parkland, which today is probably 100 times more valuable because of climate change and the fact that these forests are stored and sequestering carbon. So I'm going to focus, we have two temperate rainforests in British Columbia, coastal temperate rainforest and the inland temperate rainforest. And the inland temperate rainforest is right at the southern fringes. It's the only one of its kind in the world. This is the Cooksantine Grizzly Sanctuary, saved in about 1983 on the coast. And of course, rainforest is no accident. If you live in a tent in these areas, as I have for months at a time, you actually start growing mold. There's a legend on the coast that calls these rainforests the ancient natural trilogy of bears. Giant trees and salmon. This was the Cooksantine that we saved, a three-nation signing ceremony, 11 hereditary chiefs, and Nish Yagana, chief of people who, territory the Cooksantine is, John Kishore, NDP Minister of Environment, and so on. It was a beautiful day of life. Another valley that was saved at the time by Gerald Amis's people, the Haisla and Hanaksala, was led by Gerald and this elder called Cecil Paul Wae, and they saved what is now the world's largest intact single watershed in the temperate rainforest. In 2006, after a long 20-year campaign, my hair grew gray, it was so long, the BC government and the Coastal First Nations announced protection of 108 new conservancies on the coast, a third of the Great Bear Rainforest. Again, because of the climate change, these are all ancient forests, so more increasingly important as we go on. And we still didn't reach our goal because the Blue Ribbon Science Panel recommended that you needed to protect half of this area if you were going to protect biodiversity. This is Kitasoo High Spirit Bear Conservancy, most of the south end of Princess Royal Island. One of 500,000 acres that was protected just for the spirit bear. But I don't just want to talk about the Enbridge pipeline today. What has happened, there's been a massive outpouring of public opposition against the pipeline. It's unprecedented in the history of British Columbia, and it's just almost like a miracle to me. But there are other issues that are equally pressing, and one of them is the need to save much more wilderness. We have only 14% saved of the BC, and the inland rainforests. And we need not to lose the sight of the fact that while we're dealing with climate change and green energy policies, saving these old forests and saving old growth habitat is equally critical and important, and we need your support on that. And Craig at the back has a petition for a 500,000 acre park proposal we have in the north, the Selkirk Mountain Caribou Park proposal. It's primarily an old growth area, so please support this as well while we're going to be successful in stopping the Enbridge pipeline. So, the ink had no sooner dried on the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement in 2006, and along come the rumblings of the big new pipeline from the Athabasca tar sands to Kitimat. And slowly the picture emerged, very shocking and very scary. And what I thought we would do as our contribution from our little group, because we've studied spirit bears for 20 years on the coast, is look at a small island called Gribble Island, which is right along the proposed anchor route. And so this pipeline is going to bring huge amounts of bitumen to the coast mainly, and huge amounts that will go down through these narrow, stormy marine channels. And I just want to show you a little bit what the tar sands looks like. I did one of the first environmental impact studies at Syncrude tar sands in 1972 when it was just a little operation. I had no idea it would turn into one of the most destructive zones on the planet. This is what the boreal forest, the homeland of the Beaver First Nations and so on looks like. This is actually a protected area. This is what that habitat looks like today. Corporations from all over the world are trying to cash in on this very expensive way, source of energy, and very polluting source of energy. Tar sands produce 3 times more carbon than does conventional oil extraction by driven wells. Is one example of how destructive this is, besides what we're doing to the land. Yet it accounts for about half of our oil production today. And because of the huge consumption of fossil fuels, all of us are involved in that. The demand keeps growing internationally, and of course Canada is one of the wealthiest nations on earth. But how is this going to affect the spirit bear? So, this is the BC coast, and those green-red areas in the middle are sort of the main areas we protected for the spirit bear. And you're right, the north end is right on the tanker route. So, one of the things, when you look at Enbridge's environmental impact assessment, which is like a foot high, and your eyeballs go cockeyed trying to read it digitally after 2 hours, I tell you, is they are admitting that where the pipeline comes down to Kitimat, if there's an oil spill there, it'll leak 2 million liters of oil into the Kitimat River, which will flow out onto the Kitimat estuary. And you hear all these promises of cleanup. Well, what they admit in the report, and these estuaries are the salt marshes at the mouth of the river. They're the most sensitive, fragile, biodiversity areas on the BC coast. You know how they're going to clean it up? They're going to burn it. Burn our estuaries. There will be about 220 tanker trips a day up and down the narrow Douglas Channel and out through the islands and past Gribble Island. Huge tankers over 1 kilometer long. And for what? so we can keep selling our goods to other countries to continue the acceleration of climate change. Somewhere we have to get a grip on what we're doing to the planet, and I think we need to start with the Enbridge pipeline and the tar sands, and of course cleaning up our own carbon footprints as well. So once the oil gets to Kitimat, it's loaded in huge storage tankers, and they develop leaks as well. And then these tankers will go down. You can see the one roof. Can't get this working. Anyhow, they'll go down to the open sea. There'll be one route that will go north through the Strait of Umiak in Alaska. It's the shortest route to Asia, and the others will be sort of down and out to the open sea. This is the Great Bear Rainforest. This is where we're going to put these big tankers. This is one of the most amazing, pristine areas on Earth. And these little lines here show the tanker routes coming down. The little island up on the right is called Gribble Island, and Mother Island, the White Bears. And right in this area is called Wright Sound. And Wright Sound is where a bunch of channels come together, and also where the Inside Passage, which is the main marine shipping route up and down the coast, will intersect with the tanker route. And Enbridge calls this a high collision potential area. And this little island in the mid between the two channels is Gribble Island, the mother island of the White Bears. And how Enbridge proposes getting these huge tankers around these stormy channels here is to have these huge tugboats anchored. So this image shows a big tanker with a couple, 2 or 3 tugboats are going to keep there all the time, supposedly to prevent these things from grounding and having a major oil spill. In some of the most treacherous waters in the world, huge storms that don't just come from the west, but the willow winds that come from the east in the cold of winter. And tidal tides that go so rapidly, they keep creating tidal rivers. And so this is where they propose to do it. This is a tanker collision in the Middle East as an example. And of course, in Wright Sound is where the now infamous sinking of the BC Queen of the North happened some years ago. So in Wright Sound, Enbridge simulated a spill of 36,000 cubic meters, and said this is about the size of the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, and said this would only affect 240 kilometers of shoreline within 15 days. Well, how could that be when the Exxon Valdez, which was a bit more affected, an area 6 times bigger than Enbridge is predicting? And this is just one example of how Enbridge is trying to play down the dangers of this process here. So this is the 1989 disastrous Exxon Valdez oil spill. And in 56 days, this oil traveled 500 miles down the coast. This is what it looks like. It reaped huge ecological consequences for 50 species of birds, seabirds, more than 90, fish, killer whales. Everything suffers enormously when these spills happen, often with irreversible consequences. Enbridge tells us that they're going to have all this recovery program up and down the coast, and they're going to train First Nations people and have all these tugboats and stuff. Well, what we find out when you really look at the Exxon Valdez spill is you really can't clean it up. You might clean it from the surface and wash it off the beaches, but if you dig down on the beaches in Alaska, there'll still be oil 3 or 4 inches down, and also balls of oil on the seashore, leaking their toxins into the environment. They tell us from the Exxon Valdez it may take centuries to clean up. Before Exxon Valdez happened, the head of the company said, "I am satisfied that tanker traffic to and from Port Valdez and operations of an oil port there will not cause any significant damage to the marine environment and to fisheries interests. They predicted a spill in 240 years. Exxon Valdez happened just 12 years. Enbridge is telling us the same thing." So, any of these promises reading about last week in the Vancouver Sun and the province's requirements that Enbridge would have to make sure they clean it up is technologically impossible. So this is the range of the Kermode bear, a subspecies of the North American black bear on the BC coast, and the little red area is Gribble Island. And here we are again. And they did genetic studies during the Great Bear Rainforest Campaign. And this little island has probably 100 to 143 black bears. So there's 20,000 hectares. And out of that small population, semi-isolated population of Kermode bears and black bears, 40% of those are white. On some of the islands, it's 10%, and just on the adjacent mainland, it's 1%. So there's a lot of genetics going on here that's world-class, world unique. And evolutionary scientists believe that the gene for the white bear originated on Gribble Island. And Gribble Island is right along the tanker route. And this is what we look like. We have a black mother with a white cub, or a white mother with a black cub. It's a double recessive gene. And we did a report on Gribble Island, just a cumulative effect study before we looked at Enbridge. And a lot of it's rock, a lot of it's been logged. And there's only 2 small salmon streams, and salmon are a keystone to the bears surviving the winter. It's the main source of food in the fall to fatten up for hibernation. So Gribble Island is already in a fragile state because of logging and commercial overfishing and depleted salmon runs. And this is some of the runs you get on the coast. These are pink salmon. And there's a white bear chowing down a nice pink salmon. And these are some black faced Kermode bears doing the same thing. So, what did Enbridge's environmental study say it would do to bears on the coast? It said that most of tanker spill would only affect a few individual bears. When I read that, I thought, how could that be? How is that possible? So we did another report and looked at things. We did a study in Alaska of the effect of oil on grizzly bears 500 miles from the spill, so there wasn't much of an effect. But they found one young grizzly that had died of oil ingestion. So that far away, wasn't that much of an effect. So then we went and looked at this is some of the cleanup we did there. This guy's carrying a shotgun because there were bears back along the shore, and he had to protect the people who were trying to clean up the oil. But if you went with a shovel and dug on this beach 20, 30 years later, your shovel would come out with oil dripping from it. So these spills spread very rapidly because of the winds and tidal currents on the coast. So we went and looked at what studies were done on polar bears. Not much. They took 3 polar bears that were in trouble, and they immersed them in a pool with bitumen on it, oil on it, and it caused very toxic effects. They had kidney failure, they had blood damage, they felt so bad that they euthanized one, they took another one and recovered it, and another one died. They concluded that the bear's kidneys could not handle the hydrocarbons, and there were other effects, including just from licking the oil off their fur, they'll lose their fur. So when we looked at all of this and went back to Gribble Island, most of the bears there come down and they depend on the seashore for eating barnacles and mussels or foraging on salmon that die in the creeks and wash down. And so what's going to happen to this rare, unique genetic population if there's a tanker spill anywhere along that marine passage? There are going to be, in my professional opinion, catastrophic effects from just the bears getting oil on their coats and from bears eating the contaminated foods. And these are a couple of white pups chowing down on barnacles and mussels on the shore of Gribble Island. So, there will be a high direct mortality on these bears from an imminent tanker spill. And to me, there will be high mortality during the winter for the ones that survive, because during the winter, their body system shuts down and they go into these big trees to hibernate for 6 months, and they don't urinate and they don't go to the bathroom. So they're dependent on their kidneys to recycle all of their body waste for 6 months. So imagine with hydrocarbons in their fats or hydrocarbon on their fur, what's going to happen there. So basically we would lose this rare genetic subpopulation on this island, either in the short term or over, I don't think, a longer period of 2 or 3 years. And it would probably affect the genetic ratio. This is irreplaceable bear population. That's just one effect. What about all of the rest of the coastline, the rainforests? This is the marine channel going into the Kitlow and Gerald's territory. All of these shores will be black from oil. What about all the salmon streams? These are just 50 of the salmon watersheds in our Spirit River study area south of Gribble Island. 50 salmon streams and rivers, millions of salmon. And some of our new protected areas. This is Cornwall Inlet, north of Prince Victoria Island. These are marine channels with tidal rivers. This is the Cootsie estuary. All of these will be affected. And these tides come twice a day. They're amazing. The moon causes this. And the tides come in, and 6 hours later, this will all be tide flaps with a few water channels. And of course, even these little salmon spawning streams, these estuaries are wintering grounds for trumpeter swans, denning areas for the coastal wolf. There's all kinds of humpback whales and other whales that migrate through the area and live in the area. And who's responsible? Not Enbridge. They won't own the tankers. The tankers are independently owned. And what happened with Exxon Valdez, that company still has not paid $72 million in compensation. So how good are Enbridge promises? I'll leave that up to you. And it's not just the animals, it's all of the coastal First Nations who've lived there for thousands of years and who left their ancient libraries or rock paintings on many of the ocean walls. That'll all be blackened too. And everybody's fighting back. I see so much opposition, just like an angry bear that's going on, and it warms my heart. It's just really amazing to see such an uprising of concern by informed people. And over the rivers and the islands are the guardian totem poles that watch over the land. They're the watchman poles, which Gerald can tell you more about. And in Alaska, the First Nations have still not recovered from the oil spill. And may we not have weeping totem poles down the road to commemorate the mistake of having the Enbridge pipeline to the coast. I want to end with the Chin-Chan legend of the spirit bearer. And it goes something like, Raven the Creator went to one of the large islands on the central coast, and he went around to every black bear, and he made every 10th black bear white as a reminder of the last ice age. Think about that. That's an amazing legend. And we want the white bear in the legend to be there another 10,000 years. Let us not make mistakes anymore. Thank you.